and I have been playing for the last 25 years? Having played that long, I've seen a lot of different player types, especially when you're the DM. If you post on a looking for group subreddit or Discord, people will come out of the woodwork to come play with you. Offering to be a dungeon master is kind of like the dating app equivalent of being amazingly gorgeous. Hi, I'm Legal Kimchi, your prettiest DM, and this is some DM good gaming. So you have your adventure set. You've already thought of the story that'll play out. Maybe it's sword and sorcery, maybe it's political intrigue, maybe it's a murder mystery, maybe it's a mix of all of them. Who knows? And you even have an idea of what type of DM you want to be, because you saw some of my previous videos and shared them with other people. But your players will show up with their own ideas and their own styles. It's good to know what these players are looking for so that you can tailor the experience to them. My own personal list basically has subsections of two main categories: playable and non-playable. People in the playable category are people that I can work with, people that I can incorporate in my game without too much of a fuss. Non-playable are not. Now that doesn't mean they're non-playable to everyone. They're just not congruent with my style. And in those cases, I wish those players the best, and for them to find a DM that fits the style they want to play. Then everybody's happy. And while sometimes this exercise of filling out types of people seems arbitrary, everyone at the table needs to know what they're willing to deal with and what they want out of the game. Playing with people that don't mesh with your type isn't fun. And if you're not having fun, don't play the game. With any sort of categorization video where I try to tell you types of this and that, these are not hard and fast rules. Not everybody will fit into these categories, and some will be a mixture of a couple of different ones. That's fine. Now, without further ado, these are the types of people that I've played with. The actor. They like to do voices. Lo there, traveler. Perhaps 'tis time for us to cross swords with our adversaries, to resolve disputes unforgivable.
Hey guys, I don't think that the gelatinous cube is edible.
Now that's not all that defines an actor, but it's one of the traits that you'll notice very early on in the play session. Now this is to separate from the capital A actors who go far, far deeper. Some of these folks actually have moments where they stop thinking like themselves and they actually start thinking like the character. And when that happens, they'll just knee-jerk reaction something as that character before they even think about it. Like in that moment, they forget who they are. The actor isn't thinking to themselves, what would my next line be? But rather they're wondering why Corey wants to walk barefoot outside when there's snow on the ground. You're probably going to get frostbite. Sometimes they even like to take center stage. Now, let's be clear. Let them do this sometimes. Let them take center stage. Let them have the center of attention and command a moment. It's what they came to do. And sometimes they really enjoy it when you play off of them. If they're trying to emulate their character, then try to emulate your NPC. Think about what they want, what their desires are, and let them flow through you. This can be super weird, I'll admit that. It can get really awkward, especially the first few times that you do it. But if you're having fun with it, and they're having fun with it, you can sometimes create these great moments between you and that player. And those genuine moments can be entertaining for everyone else at the table. Plus, you're going to get better at it over time, as is the player. That's not to say that they're not without drawbacks. The actor sometimes gets impatient, especially with combat. I've known so many actual actors that I've played with who kind of wish the whole combat thing was taken out of the game. This is a bit crazy to me because at its root, as I mentioned previously, Dungeons & Dragons is basically a war game where instead of commanding an army, you command a soldier. So it seems to me a little bit of a clash in form to remove combat in its entirety. To be perfectly honest with you, they should probably be playing a different game or doing improv, which is something they actually do. Now, a way to make combat more fulfilling for an actor is to have them narrate what they're doing. There's a player that I love playing with, one of my oldest friends, who never just says, I attack the monster. He always comes up with something really weird and makes you come up with the rules on the fly. Like, for instance, he once played a hobbit where he wanted to grab a sword that was way too large for him and have his feet tied to a rope, and then have the Goliath barbarian swinging him around as a sort of whirling blade of death. There are no rules in D&D for this. But I got where he was going with it, and instead of saying, no, you can't do that, there's no rule for it, I don't know, made something up. Had him roll some checks, and you know what? It meet the target number. So he did it, and a bunch of bad guys died. Is that rule breaking? Yeah, it completely is. But it fulfilled the actor character for creating the narrative that they wanted. And that's what really made it satisfying for him. 2. The Murder Hobo. These folks want to kill things. They're generally power gamers. To be perfectly honest with you, I feel that they get an unfair reputation inside the D&D community. There are so many people who watch something like Critical Role and see the wonderful way that actors can play in a game and want everybody to play like that. Well, folks, I've been in this hobby for a very long time, and I think people sort of forget that this game was originally designed with Murder Hobo-ishness as the default. It's not like everyone who was playing in 1974 was some sort of thespian who was extemporaneously spewing Shakespeare at the NPCs. Murder hobos are not an aberration to the hobby. Murder hobos were the entire hobby. Back in the beginning, you would just bust down doors in a dungeon, loot, and get stuff. It was basically a pen and paper version of the old Diablo game. The core mechanics of the game feed into murder hobo playstyles, so don't take a step back and wonder why there are so many out there. Embrace it. It's part of the game. It's actually a very pure form of D&D. Guess what, guys? It's Dungeons and Dragons. It's not theaters and thespians. It's a game where the core mechanic is combat. You're supposed to burn through monsters like me through a platter of 4 dozen raw oysters. Actually, it also ends the same way. Satisfaction, bodies strewn everywhere, maybe some mild queasiness. Now, don't get me wrong, I have completely been guilty of this myself. I used to lament to other people when I had players explain to me that they went through an entire session with no combat. Like, I got really upset with them. I felt that this investigation of a mysterious orphanage was going really well, and some of my actor players and other types were having a really good time trying to figure out what was going on in this orphanage. But there was one player who really wanted to use their abilities. They had really focused on how to make their character truly kick butt, and when they didn't get to use any of those abilities, they felt almost like it was a wasted session. I got so frustrated with this at the time. But then I started to realize what the problem was. Imagine that you're playing Monopoly, and you had a player complain because, for whatever reason, you weren't allowing them to buy properties and hotels. Well, then why are we playing this game? So that you can pretend to be a landlord and have interactions with tenants? Most of what you see on roleplay Twitch streams or Critical Role or things of that nature are things that have no rules about them whatsoever. A lot of the times they don't even really need Dungeons and Dragons as a framework, they just use it because it's the most popular RPG in the world. And don't get me wrong, I love that too. To this day, I love having sessions where the RP is so intense, where the acting, the back and forth, the choices, all of this is so great that you go through not having a combat encounter in the entire session and yet feel pretty satisfied with the game. All I'm saying is, don't hate on people who like the combat portion of your combat RPG. It's a fantasy game. Let them live their fantasy. Number 3, the Wallflower. This person just likes to hang out with friends. They are the exact opposite of the actor. Maybe they don't even care that you guys are playing D&D. Now, you may find them occasionally on the phone or just being quiet, maybe even only speaking when they're being spoken to or when initiative comes up or they need to attack something. Maybe they're just snacking in the background. Once in a while, they may make the occasional joke. They don't engage much. They just like being there, watching the story unfold, laughing at the puns, being a part of a group. I used to hate playing with these people. Why aren't you engaging? Are you not having any fun? You're just sitting there. This would drive me insane. I mean, at least the murder hobo's actually playing the game. Then again, I started to think about it. They're not disturbing anyone else's fun. Then why am I mad? Look, some people are quiet. Some people can't shut up. Doesn't make one better or worse than the other. Your players are under no obligation to pad your ego or to say quippy things during a game. D&D is supposed to be inclusive. And if this person's not taking away from anyone else's fun, then let them be. Number 4. the excuse. This is the kind of person that loves to say, but this is what my character would do. I would say that about 90% of the time that I hear that phrase, it's because some idiot wants to ruin someone else's fun. Because even when you have an actor who really embodies their character, the good ones don't make characters that you need to make excuses for. Look, there's a social contract when it comes to D&D. Everyone comes to the table understanding that it's a group activity. As such, when they create their characters, they make sure that they create their characters in a way that will interact in a fun way with the other characters in the group. That way they don't have to use that phrase. You made this character. So if the character would do a jerk thing, and you made the jerk character, you're doing a jerk thing. I'm trying to keep this thing PG. No cussing. This excuse absolutely infuriates me. I've had entire groups break down because a person stuck with this mantra. Look, at the point in time that the group has a job to do and you're over on the side saying, well, I'm not going to do that because my character wouldn't do that. The solution to that problem is, okay, your character sits outside of the dungeon while everyone else explores it and you do nothing. Happy? I place this into my non-playable category. And anyone who finds themselves saying this in a session, take responsibility for the character you made up. Number 5. The Note Taker. She brought a notebook. I love these players. She knows that Duke Alfonso of Argo cut a deal with the Duchess Isabella. She reminded you that the group found the Rod of Seven Parts 5 months ago in an ogre cave when they were searching for the Sapphire of Al-Kira that has been lost since the Battle of the Fire Valley that happened 1,000 years before the end of the Phelan Empire. You sometimes think that she knows more about your setting than you do. And when she recalls the information that she wrote down about your setting, it makes your setting seem even cooler. I DM for this player. Doing voices for your character is cool and all, and really engaging in the combat's fun. But when you sink your teeth into the setting, when a player engages with me that much, it makes me feel like I should take more notes about my own setting. It's a way of validating the DM's extraordinary amount of work that they put into all of this. Now, they also have their shortcomings. They will call you out on inconsistencies because they actually have the written notes to remind you that that thing that you made up on the fly just, a year ago, it doesn't make so much sense with what you just said. So sometimes you can have a plot twist or an interesting thing that just came to you the week before that you want to introduce into your next session. But then when you do, that person's like, well, about a year ago, according to this, and that can get a little annoying. I mean, you can counteract that by being a little bit more prepared and having notes of your own. But sometimes it can stymie a good idea that you just got spur of the moment. So that's my list. You know, I know these lists are really fun and interesting to interact with, but don't let them control how you interact with your players. Like, it's useful to have a little tidbit of this information to curate the experience for what your players want, but I found that no one fits neatly into one category. I think of it more like tuning dials on an old TV or radio. Somebody may have 2 levels of actor and 3 levels of Murder Hobo, or maybe even 5 levels of Wallflower and 10 levels of Note Taker. I feel like we should come up with a rule across the entirety of the D&D community that says that you should be able to get a few sessions in with a group, maybe 5 or 6, so that you can get a feel for each other. And if it's not working out, everybody should be able to just call it a day and walk away. No hard feelings. It is a tricky concept. I mean, I've had to stop playing games with people that I love when I realized that we didn't get along in the game. On the opposite side of that, I've met brand new people who I now consider close friends, who were strangers, who only came together to play this game, and the group dynamic worked out well. Be observant to what your players like, or even just ask them outright. Keep in mind, sometimes they won't know yet because they'll be brand new. That's fine. Thanks for watching, folks. Remember to like and share the video, subscribe if you enjoyed it, and hit the bell icon so you're notified for future videos coming out. If you have an idea for a future video or a comment, please put so down below, and I'll go through it and I may respond to it in a future video. And remember, folks, roll dice, roll play, and roll with it. It's not just the shirt either. The actual box as well. And the dice are still in the original baggie.